If you're inspo tanks, and make no mistake, you've come to the right place. Just give to Neil the time to straight up blow your mind with a new show of drawing a blank.
Alright, welcome back everyone. Last week we spent some time animating the tragic murder child, so let's spread that love around to the rest of Darkstalker's problematic species. Let's draw some NightWings! NightWings, design-wise, I feel are the most basic European-style dragons, aside from Skywings, which are also pretty typical fantasy dragons. I've drawn quite a few NightWings in the past. Starflight, Clearsight, Moonwatcher, and Morrowseer, just to name a few. So instead of doing a more generalized NightWing design, I'm going to jump right into character designing, starting with Starflight. It's been a year or so since my first drawing of him, so I want to try updating his design a bit. Starflight is a bit of a nervous wreck, so I wanted to show that in my drawing. Doing character design and expressing the character's personality through shapes is just one way to get your audience to understand the character, but that's often a very subtle, unconscious message. Even more important is to show how that character acts. Depending on the pose of the character and how well an artist can capture that character's actions, it can be easy to recognize a character even if the design itself isn't anything that you imagined. This is why I was never too big of a stickler for keeping canon book designs. A lot of canon Wings of Fire NightWings are described as various shades of black, which makes sense of course, they are black dragons that blend into the night sky. Designing a bunch of dragons that are mostly the same color is tricky though, because you don't want them all to end up looking the same. So along with shapes, I try to use different lighter and darker scale colors to make each dragon different. Starflight here has a light nose and underbelly, as well as darker scales around his eyes. I like to imagine that these darker scales would have been where Starflight's silver scales would have been had he been hatched under the light of the three moons. It's something that really never gets talked about except in passing, but the fact that Starflight would have been hatched with both the ability to see the future and read minds had he just been outside and not stuck in a cave is really interesting to me. Of course, I think our poor sweet boy is perfect how he is, and powers would have had a huge effect on how he grew up. But I wonder how different the Dragonettes would have treated Starflight, and oh man, this is just begging for an AU to be written. Next up, we have Fatespeaker, who I haven't done a design for yet. Fatespeaker is such a darling, so I wanted to give her a lot of rounded features. Fatespeaker is definitely one of those characters that I find a little annoying, but I love them all the same. I would like to see her become more comfortable with the fact that she doesn't have NightWing powers so that she can stop lying about it. Given how she was raised, it's perfectly understandable why she holds on to that belief so strongly, so I hope that we can see that one day she doesn't need her fake powers to make herself worthwhile to those around her. Anyway though, Fatespeaker is described as a very purplish, pinkish black dragon, so I went in with that in mind while coloring. It took a little bit to get the kind of colors I think worked. I really liked the idea of a pink underbelly for her. But I did have to play around with the colors of her scales quite a bit before I got something I liked. I don't usually work with these color combinations a whole lot, so it's something I'm going to have to practice. I'm so glad Starflight and Fatespeaker have each other, and even more so, I love their roles at Jade Academy. They're both perfectly suited for their jobs, and I hope we get to see more of them in the future. Now, as I move on to Morrowseer, it is time to do a total redesign. The top left drawing I have is my old Morrowseer artwork, but I actually kinda sorta maybe like the Morrowseer design from the graphic novel. My design of him isn't going to be exactly like the graphic novel's take on it, but it's definitely leaning closer to that design than my old one. In general, I'm actually not a huge fan of the graphic novel's NightWing designs. They feel a little too blocky and quote-unquote military for me. But I totally see where the artist is coming from with that idea. It's not like it just came out of nowhere. It's just not how I personally imagine NightWings to look. Morrowseer, on the other hand, I think fits this design choice really well, and it gives him an intimidation factor for the Dragonets of Destiny. There were a few choices I carried over from the old design: his sunken-in eyes, tattered ears, and his aged look. I went with something really different with his spikes. I wanted them to look wilted. I am a fan of the general concept, but I might need to play around with it a little bit more in the future to get it exactly how I want it. I also changed Morrowseer to more of a neutral yellowy black. It felt more fitting for his new design. One of these days, I want to try and draw some scenes from the books with my designs because I've always had this really vivid picture in my head when Morrowseer first arrives to see the Dragonets of Destiny, and he's just this massive, imposing dragon looming over them. And last but not least, we're going to end on a little drawing of Mastermind. After doing these three, I had an idea of how I wanted to draw him, so I got it out there. Mastermind definitely strikes me as a nutty professor type. He does horrible things, but for all intents and purposes, he looks like your typical crazy scientist. I had fun getting his spikes just right and giving him very angular features. I haven't colored this one yet, but if I did, I imagine he would either be a greenish-black or reddish-black dragon. I'll have to play around with that. Anyway, that's going to have to be it for this episode. I hope Wings of Fire fans appreciated getting dragon content 2 weeks in a row. I really want to keep working on my dragon designs. These are a lot of fun, and I want more people to be reading Wings of Fire. They are such good books and deserve just as much, if not more, love than Warriors, in my opinion. They're seriously amazing. And don't forget that the next Wings of Fire book, The Poison Jungle, is going to be coming out near the end of July, so keep an eye out for that, and Avalon and I will be reviewing the book soon after its release. Thank you all so much, and remember to please stay inspired. This week I have another question from Mushroom Queen, who asked, who is the most fun cat to draw? I love drawing villains. Darktail, Hawkfrost, and Tigerstar have always been some of my absolute favorite characters to draw. And My Name is Water asked me, do you still want to work in an animation studio one day, or is the varied work of YouTube and fandom content creation more appealing to you now? I'd love to work for a studio, honestly. It's always been my dream. Making fandom content is a lot of fun, and it's the best I can do for now in my current living situation. But still, one day I hope that I can work for a studio at least once to have a crew and be able to accomplish something bigger together. I love working around my peers and other creative people who can help critique me and help me grow as an artist. Thank you for the question, guys, and I hope you all have a fantastic week. Bye-bye!